needs after what happened to him with Molly.
Exactly.
It probably put him off women entirely.
Wait, are you talking about the scene where Harry's making out with somebody? Wait, what?
Welcome to the Dresden Files podcast.
Welcome
Some
to
of
the
that
Dresden Files
Wi-Fi
podcast.
swapping.
Right. Yes.
Oh, it works.
The Dresden Files podcast, the only Dresden Files podcast called the Dresden Files podcast, which is sponsored by the Roving Guys Network. We
As far
have
as we
lots
know.
of news. We got lots of guests. That is, we have one guest and we have 2 bits of news.
And she's
The
the news.
guest-
She's the source of the news.
She's the source of the news. Oh, yes. I think the news is that Jim went on an interview with some guy on the internet and said that he's working on Cinder Spires and wants to have that into the publisher by the end of summer. I think that's what the news was, right? Was that the news?
At some of it.
The sum of it. And that guy's Daniel Green, who's an awesome YouTuber.
Yeah, Daniel.
So shout out to
Danny,
him.
right.
Yeah. Daniel
Go-
was
go
born,
like and
hadn't seen
subscribe
it
later.
before now, and I've just been enjoying him so much.
This is Priscelle. Hello,
Silly?
Priscelli.
Priscilla.
Priscelli Spencer. Priscilla. Thank you.
We haven't had a guest that in so long. So this has been how long have you been on, Jacob? Like, I think you were the last guest that we did this for.
And then he just never went home. We kind of adopted
pretty
him.
much.
I
It's
couldn't,
like,
get
so-
rid of him. I've really tried.
After me, one
How
more
would I
to
have
go.
a family?
What is your 3 favorite books of the Dresden Files? And you're not allowed to say books that we don't know yet.
Well, you know about them now.
Yeah, now.
Yeah.
Doesn't no.
We
If
have
you
to
want
know
me
the
to not
content. Yeah.
pry answers out of your brain. You want me to be nice, you have to not say those. And your favorite character.
Excellent. So probably favorite books, I imagine, would be like Changes, because everyone loves Changes. Skin Game, and I'm actually of the contingency that frickin' adores Ghost Story, mostly because my favorite character is Molly.
Priscilla, I
And
was
there's
so
some
close to
really,
liking
really
you.
great Molly stuff, and so like any of the weaker points of the book are like, I don't care, just like Molly. So
That's it. Cancel the interview. We're done.
I was like, she got like 2 out of 3. I was like, Skin Games, yes. Just Changes, yes. Now she just needs to say Cold Days. We got the same books, and she drops a Ghost Story on me.
Boy, talk about being prisoner of the moment.
Boy.
actually,
All
like,
right.
the Cold Days got like by far the most like audition scenes when I was auditioning the actors for the trailer. I was like, because secrecy was so paramount, I couldn't use scenes from like the actual book.
Mhm.
So I just like used scenes from pre-existing material, and yeah, like Cold Days was by far the most commonly used source.
Damn good book.
That makes sense.
Actually.
It has a very large cast of people
hmm
that seem
And
like
they all have like very important things to say to Harry in that book. So.
it's kind of sad that Thomas didn't have a line in the trailer because his snark is so good.
Mhm. And also like it was frustrating because like when I was doing auditions, I was like auditioning pretty early in the game, and like the script wasn't finalized at that point, and so I knew that just like I needed to find actors that would just like absolutely nail whatever I could throw at them. And so like all of these actors like got these like this really, really juicy audition material, and then like for Molly's actress, I feel awful because I mean she's just divine, and like I had her audition using the scene in Cold Days where she's like patching Harry up after the fight with Lacuna and her posse, and I mean just like freaking like tear your heart out. She's just such an incredible performer, and literally like her performance in the trailer is like, I push a thing, no, my girl.
I guess we kind of already got the answer to who's your favorite character then. It's
Yeah.
Yeah.
probably Molly.
Yeah. That's why Ghost Story, and yeah, it's good. So why Molly over anybody else, I guess?
I mean, I think part of it started because just like when I first started reading, like I was in college, like I was, and I mean, like I was sort of like sort of being thrown into new experiences and wasn't really quite sure like what the best way of handling them was. And I mean, I just sort of like vibe with Molly there. And then also I was like just sort of starting to get into cosplay, and like Molly had the most interesting outfits. I was actually the very first ever non-Harry cosplayer in the fandom, like dressing as Molly. Yeah, I just also just kind of clicked with her that way. And then I've just really been enjoying like seeing her character growth, and how she just like is sort of occasionally like running into walls, sometimes like needing to learn things a couple times for things to really sink in. And I mean, yeah, she just feels very human, and I just enjoy the heck out of her.
Awesome.
How many books were out when you got into Dresden?
Deadbeat had just come out.
Did you start at Deadbeat, or did you start at the beginning like a
I
proper
started
person?
at the beginning. Yes, I started at the beginning like a proper person.
Yeah.
I had I started out as like a big Buffy fan, and on like one of the primary Buffy websites, I saw there was like an ad for the Dresden audiobooks, like with a picture of James Marsters on it, and like I actually swore to myself then that I would never read this series because I wanted to prove to myself that I wasn't that pathetic a James Marsters fangirl. Or like, okay, like there are limits to like where I will go, but then in I guess like late August, early September of 2005. There was this group of Buffy Spike fan fiction authors that I enjoyed following that were all gathering together for this micro convention thing, which is basically like an excuse for like them all to hang out with each other in person, called FoCon. And they were all going to be watching Serenity together at this movie theater that was across the street from my college dorm. And so like can I join you guys? And so like they were super accommodating. They invited me out to dinner with them. And we all watched the movie together, and they told me like, hey, you have to like hang out with us this weekend like, at this event. And so it was them that told me that like, yeah, you really need to read the Dresden Files. Like I don't care what like weird rules you've come up with in your own head, like pick up these books. And like they had all these pins and stuff that like in these little goodie bags that they were giving out to all the attendees, and they all had like little like taglines and quotes from Dresden. And I was like, okay, I need to read this series. And then like got the audiobooks, listened to them like on the way to this sort of Firefly shindig meetup thing, and then was like hooked on the train. So
I mean, I kind of got into it similarly. There was like I was mostly listening to I think vampire books, and I loved Buffy, and then I was like, hey, James Marsters, I gotta listen to this. And then like 2 weeks later, I was up to Changes or something. I think Changes had just come out.
nice.
Okay. I think if you could give us a little bit of the history of how you started working closer with Jim and becoming more integral to the whole operation. I think there's a lot of people who don't know that history, and it'd be helpful for future questions.
Sure. So like around that time, like 2005, 2006, it was leading up to when the first TV show was going to happen. And so just like as they were sort of promoting this TV show in progress, like more people started learning about the series. There was this sort of massive growth from the old McAnally's like emailing list to like Fred ended up creating the official forums. And like it was just Fred sort of like running everything, and he was just like totally overwhelmed, sort of trying to keep everyone in line. And I would just sort of like constantly be volunteering my time to like sort of like help make sure that like everyone was happy. Everyone like I would sort of set myself up as the person that like always knew like where in the books to look for, to like providing like textual references for anyone that needed help like supporting their theories, and then it was just generally like a helpful person. And so Fred saw me doing this and just like sort of kept throwing responsibilities at me. I think the first thing that I took on was like being sort of the news editor for the website, and then I became moderator on the forums, created the timeline. And then like White Knight came out, and I sort of like joked on the then podcast, the first Dresden Files podcast, I guess it was.
There was another one?
Yeah, like it was a
know
sort
that.
of short-lived thing that Fred and I ran for a time. And I was sort of like jokingly pointing out that like Molly had 2 birthdays in the span of the 10 months between Proven Guilty and White Knight. And so like, so Jim, like if you ever need a timeline beta, and then Jim emails me the next day asking me to join the beta list. so that was that. Then a couple years went by, and like I was one of the betas, but like in my mind, like I didn't really have like a close relationship with Jim at that point. But he was, when he was writing the last of the Alara books, he like it's the kind of series where like everyone reading it was like why doesn't this have a map? Like this is the type of story that you really want to have that in the front of the book. And so he wanted to correct that for the last book in the series. And so he wanted to like find like Penguin was going to find an artist, and his responsibility was just to create a like back of the napkin sketch essentially, for that the artist could use as reference of like where everything was relative to each other. But he'd lost his little hand-drawn map in a move 2 years prior, so like basically he'd just been winging it since then. And so he reached out to the betas for assistance in like putting all that material together. I volunteered to be that person, and just like was collecting all the like as I was working, like rereading the series, like making sure that I had all the distances relative to each other accurate, and like I was also like collecting reference images of like here the culture, the art of the cultures that that inform Jim, like basically creating this like reference document that would be given to the official artist that the Penguin was going to find. Eventually it got to the point where we realized that Penguin thought that Jim was going to be finding the artist, and Jim thought Penguin was going to find the artist, and like they needed to find an artist that day basically. And so Jim turns to me with this like volume of material and was like you did graphic design in college, right? Like, yeah. Do you want to take a crack at it? I was like, okay. And so I created the Alara map, and then it turned out really well. And so that got me some work doing some other for some other authors that were connected to Jim. Like the first was like another author that that had an agent in common, and then an editor in common, and then it just sort of became its own thing. And then I did the maps for the Cinder Spires later on. So yeah.
I hope Cinder Spires was a little bit easier. Like he was able to give you his hand-drawn sketch first instead of read through everything, now figure it out.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, like in the process of doing the Alara map, like Jim and I were just communicating with each other daily, and that's when we really just became genuine friends, as opposed to just I am working next to you. So.
Did you guys live in the same state at that point, or were you like pretty far away from each other?
No, he was living in Independence at the time, and I was in at school in Philadelphia.
Okay. So it's all online. It's amazing what technology can do.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So your first beta book was White Knight of Small Favor for Dresden?
I started like when he was, I guess, Princeps Fury, I think it was. Like he was like most partially done with it, I think.
So your first beta book was actually a Codex Alara book, not
Yeah.
Dresden?
Yeah, he was like half finished at the time, and I sort of jumped in the deep end. Yeah, when I was supposed to be like studying for my exams, like, but there's this entire Alara book that needs to be read. Yes.
So one of the things I wanted to establish earlier, so I'm going to jump in. So I wanted to have you go down, like we're chipping away at it, right? But if we were to do the Game of Thrones introduction and call all of your titles, right? So like on the subreddit, your archive, right? You're flared as the archive, which is obviously how you got to be a beta, apparently, is that you started the timeline. So I was going to put in curator of the timeline and, all of this other stuff. So what other secret, projects or lesser known projects? I mean, because you're the director of the fan trailer most recently, so if you can think of those things, like where you've kind of impacted the fandom and lay that out for us, because I mean, I'm learning about some of the history alongside everybody else. So,
so yes, with the fan trailer, I wrote, directed, sort of co-executive produced with Jim. I did all the VFX for it. Then for Jim's website, I basically Fred handles all of the infrastructure, and I handle all the content. And that includes like all the Dresden drops. Like I write all those myself, do all the graphics and whatnot, like the organizing, like the time schedule of that. managing the official store, like the Jim Butcher news feed. Like back when there was an official forum, I was one of the administrators for that. I'm one of the beta readers for the novels, shorts. I'm one of the four that also works on the graphic novels, the continuity editing for the RPGs, then the maps for Jim. Then they have me as a consultant on the upcoming TV show.
So it's still upcoming.
Still upcoming, yes.
Good to know.
Like back when it was in the hands of the Blolverine people, I actually created a series Bible for that with Jim, which was fun. Then there was like a fan dinner thing in New York Comic Con in 2010 or 2011, I don't remember which year, but like for 80 people, and I single-handedly coordinated that. That was fun. But yeah, like I do a lot of things.
Right. And first of her name, so just throwing that out there. So
yes. Well,
Priscilla Dresden Files would be lost without me, first of her name. Like, imagine if Jim had to do all that, he'd never have to write. Like, he wouldn't have time.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And we'd end up with 18 books instead of 25.
For the trailer, what kind of budget did you have to be able to work with?
I don't think I'm at liberty to talk about that.
Okay.
More than our budget, though.
$1 billion, probably. Anywhere from $1 to $1 billion, somewhere in there.
Yes,
Yeah.
somewhere in that
It's a
range.
safe bet.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm good at these numbers things, so.
Better than me. Maybe you should count the episodes.
Right. We're on episode 1 billion, maybe. I don't know.
Right. What's your favorite conspiracy theory about the Dresden Files?
Yeah.
Oh. Huh.
Or which one you think is the most ridiculous, but you still appreciate, or something.
Yeah. See, the ridiculous could be a trap. So, while she's sifting through all the timelines and what she knows and can say, and like breaks out the chalkboard and be like, nope, that's out. Nope. So.
Well, I love like back on the old official forums, like years ago, Miss Duck with her theory that Molly is Mab, and like long before she ever became the Winter Lady. And so like when that happened, Miss Duck was like, yes, none of you believed me.
Right, close enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which theory have you seen early on, or like a theory that has actually paid off by now? Something similar to that. Would you think is like where you were like, how did they figure that out?
Genuinely, nothing is coming to mind at the moment. Yeah, like everything coming to mind is just like spoilers.
Right.
The one where Dresden wakes up at the bottom of the stairs in the cupboard again.
Mm-hmm.
That one.
So just so we're clear, I'm going to take this as confirmation that my theory was right and everything is happening in peace talks. So
Yes.
No, we've established
Actually,
that.
because she
We know
can't
for
tell
a
us
fact that
because
other
it's
people
being
have
revealed
peace talks.
in peace talks, or it's secret side cousin, that
Peace Talks Part
that
8.
was coming.
Everything's actually happening in
Peace Talks
that.
Apple.
In
You were wrong.
fact, so much
I
happened
know,
in
right?
peace talks. So much happened in peace talks, it became 2 books, Justin. So you
Mhm.
were right. Everything
Right.
happens in peace talks.
Oh, we never actually said
And-
that on the news. By the way, there are 2 books coming out this year: Battleground and Peace Talks.
Mhm.
Battleground's coming. Yeah, we never actually said that, did we? Oh.
Right.
But
Oh yeah, surprise.
Oh yeah, you're listening to the Dresden Files
Enjoy.
podcast, but you didn't know already that there are 2 books.
To be fair,
Mhm.
we do announce the news.
Right.
Yes.
We just did.
And there's a
Yeah,
trailer.
Yes, there was a
And
trailer.
there's a trailer. I was sure we were being bamboozled with the Battleground. I was like, it's like an early April's Fool's joke.
Yeah, you
was
were.
an
You were
amazing
adamant
script.
about
I
that.
was really sure.
I was like, I don't know about that because it's already up for pre-sale and it's
Right. It is the most elaborate April Fool's joke to date. So,
Mhm.
yeah. And I mean, to be fair, you guys do a really bang up job on the April Fool's pranks. So,
Thank you. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
another thing that wasn't on my list. I do the April Fool's pranks every year.
I
There
assume
you
you're
go.
taking a break this year.
What's that?
I assume you're taking a break this year.
Oh no, this year is going to be fun.
Awesome.
You're really going to enjoy this one.
So how do you feel when you did that April Fool's joke with the theater show, I think it was? And
Right.
someone actually bought tickets to go to
Mm.
New York. And it was like, oh
Buy
yeah.
tickets to a Broadway show before you've gotten tickets to the Broadway show. Come
Where there's
on,
a will, there's a
people.
way.
Just a super fan, man. So
Yeah.
Could have a few more points in planning though.
Right. Min-maxing. We put all our points in super fan, a little bit less in, checking the calendar or, checking for actual tickets.
If it had been on ice, more
Games
people
do
would.
check calendars. That's how we have a timeline.
Right.
I
Do you also help him?
felt terrible, but also I thought it was hilarious.
Mm.
Because also it was like,
This will help him
should
with.
have been so obvious. Like I try to like do this like strike this balance. So like maybe the first paragraph is kind of credible, but by the time you get to the end, it should be just clearly obvious that this is a joke. Because
Right.
I don't want to hurt anyone. Like I don't want to I want to make sure that these jokes are harmless fun that everyone can enjoy, and like someone like genuinely like losing money on something that I created, like no one has fun doing that.
Right.
So
I think Jim did. Like he reached out to that person or something, didn't he?
yeah, and gave him
Right.
I think like an early peek of the next book or something. So yeah.
And if they were able to make a trip of New York out of it, then I mean, that's
Yeah.
still a good reason. So
I kind of have a question. I don't know if this is one of your duties, but as a beta reader and such, do you ever help him with the research back end before he writes, or does he mostly do that himself?
He does that himself. Like he has
Okay.
like people that he'll reach out to that are sort of subject matter experts, and that is not me. So
Oh, well.
How much how much feedback do you guys get to give that he actually takes during the beta reading process? Like I remember reading something a long time ago that there was another character that had an M name and like the betas rebelled and said, no, you're not allowed anymore or something.
No more M's.
if so, that must have been before my time. I that doesn't ring a bell with me.
Well, that clearly failed.
Yes. It depends on like how much it will like completely upset like how much of the story it's going to upend. I mean there've certainly been chapters where like I think that there was something in I don't remember which book it was. I'm blanking, but like there was a scene where between Harry and Lara where like Harry reveals to her that Thomas is his brother, and I was like, she found out about that back in Blood Rights, and Jim was like, damn it, and so he had to rewrite the chapter. But yeah, like generally, it's our comments are more or less restrained to just like chapter by chapter, as opposed to like things that will like completely change the trajectory of the entire book.
So he gives you the chapter and you guys get confused up until the later chapters of the book. Like he lets you dangle. He doesn't explain things.
Yes. He is a monster. When he wrote Small Favor, like I mean he basically he gives us each chapter as he writes them. And so when he was writing Small Favor, like there was a week and a half that we went by that we thought Michael had been killed on the island. So
Nice.
like the beta list like went through this entire mourning period before we finally got the chapter where we find out he was okay.
So changes to Ghost Story was what?
Yeah.
Well, also like with Jim and him being a monster, he actually waited until he saw me like online on Google Hangouts to post the chapter to the beta list so that he could watch my reaction live. Yeah.
I just imagine like you when he was talking to Daniel, he was sitting there with his cup sipping, and I just imagine him sitting there with this cup, like looking at it, just like, okay, here we go.
Yes, that is spot on accurate.
What would you say is the biggest impact you felt as you had as a beta reader? Like somewhere it's like you caught something that would have been massive, like if that had went to print.
Well, Lara learning twice of what her brother's brother is, that would have been bad.
Yeah.
He keeps wanting to put that into books. Like that's now happened multiple times.
No.
But yeah, like he has like so many like different versions of the story in his head that like yeah, like he needs like an external brain, like several external brains, like just to keep track of it all, because like no matter like how much information is already put out into the world, like even what even what we know is just like the tip of the iceberg compared to like what is actually like yeah, what all he has planned for the future. So yeah, like it's not a personal failing in by any stretch of the word, any stretch of the imagination. Like yeah, like it's just too much for one brain. So I think that like one thing that just like on a personal note sort of like struck me, like less about continuity, but like in Cold Case, Cold Case, there was like the way that like Molly had been like really in this sort of state of like self-denial, like vulnerability, like just because of her like hypersensitivity, like in Cold Days, which happened like a couple days prior, like she didn't even want to hug Harry because like it was sort of too she was just too raw. And like when she actually like when her like what she thought was a healthy sexuality returned to her, like she felt that was more like returning to like who she was as a human. Like she didn't initially see that as a sign that something was wrong. Like she saw that as a sign that something was right. And so I think that like that's something that I sort of spoke to Jim about, and he was able to like and just like because I'm asexual and just like part of that like that sort of like tightness, I guess. Like I think that I had sort of like a different insight, and so I was able to sort of share that with Jim, and he rewrote parts of it just to make that a little bit more deep, and sort of like bring a little bit more insight into there. And so like even though that's something that like it was subtle, but it made me feel special and important, and like I made a real contribution by adding that.
I was just going to say it is. I mean, it is a powerful scene, you know, definitely on both of their cases, and you're like, oh man, it's totally finally going to happen, one of those, and then it's like, oh, and it's terrible, and that's how that happened to Ramirez. So, because when we finally read Cold Case, we, you know, many of us had already read the preview chapter for Peace Talks, so we already knew he had a limp, and we're like, what's that about, and all this stuff. So, you know, future past spoilers, especially if you haven't read the IO9 exclusive, you know, because it seemed like there were some tweaks to the chapter, but the story was largely intact for the previews. So I read it again. But yeah, I remember reading the preview chapter and just being like, what happened there? And then you get Cold Case and you're like, oh man, that's what happened. That's terrible. So yeah.
Yeah, Jim takes delight in like sinking my ships.
Right.
For all of the different versions that you read, how do you keep track of what was real? Because eventually you're going to have the same problem as Jim, right? Like your hard drive's going to get full.
Yes. And at times, like I feel that coming on. I mean, I think that I think that I read the finished versions like more times than Jim does. And so like I think that Jim's like just the sheer amount of time, like brain space that's spent in like the kind of unpolished, ambiguous state versus the finished state. Like I have a little bit more advantage in that I spend less time in sort of that ambiguous place, and more time in the finished place. So like I'm able to commit the finished version to memory a little bit more easily. So yeah, that's a bit of an advantage.
She lives in the prime timeline and he lives in possibility. So
yeah. He's got a lot of mirrors. Like,
right.
I also saw in a Q&A that he uses the wiki a fair amount.
Yes.
So you said ships, so that was one of the things I wanted to ask about. So who do you ship with Harry, or if you've got others that you want to expound upon that you're more proud of? You know, I guess that fits into the theory territory. Well, I mean, some people take it seriously.
There's one right answer to this question.
Yeah, Harry and Murphy.
Harry and Murphy.
Karen loves Tristan.
There you go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Hendrickson guard.
Yes.
Nice. Yeah.
And
Which I mean
Marcone
that.
was who?
Harry, obviously.
Right.
Matt Marcone, clearly.
Well, I read
Marcone
Marcone as
himself.
aromantic, but actually, oh my god, am I seriously going to confess to this in public? I am.
Yes, you are. Now you are.
It's recorded for all time. I'm just giving you one more out, so it's never going away.
But no, but just like when we were filming the Harry Marcone scene, as we refer to it in the trailer. I mean, just like Chris Showerman, like he has a vibe. Like everyone on the set, man, woman, and other, like they were like, oh dang. I'm discovering parts of myself that I've never previously been aware of. And so like after my way of like detoxing my brain after the trailer, I went back and like I just like read like all the Harry Marcone fic that I could find. Like it's not something that I would want to happen in canon, but I was just really enjoying like letting my mind play with that dynamic. So there you go, internet. That happened.
There you go. Yep, that's a thing.
You're gonna see a spike in that web traffic soon.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Look, we're running out of the internet. I mean, for everybody who's already been self-quarantined for 14 days, like you're starting to get like, look, we already got all the legitimate Dresden we're going to get for the next 3 months. So, you know.
There you go, director. Now you got something to write.
Right.
Yeah, literally like 1 out of 5 I calculated fanfics in this fandom are Harry Marcone, and I'm hoping that like after the trailer it will be 1 in 4.
You made a difference. You brought statistics up.
This is my contribution to the fandom.
Oh yeah.
Didn't you write a short story, like a fanfic short story?
Like when I was first
Morgan.
getting into the fandom, I haven't written anything in years because like it feels weird to write things like when you know stuff in advance. But yeah, I've written a bunch of fanfics.
Okay.
Didn't you also
they were
write
like 10 years ago at this point, so like they're not representative of like the quality of writing that I would want to be out there in the universe representing me. But oh well, it exists. Nothing ever goes away.
We've all been there. So even
Yes.
you, EG, you'll own it. No, but
didn't
you write a
fanfic? I think. No, I haven't.
maybe it's. Didn't you write a short story from like Morgan's perspective, like him as an apprentice? Yeah, okay, that's the one I'm thinking of.
Like
anyway.
jumped around in time to like all different parts of his life, and he was speculating that the person that Morgan lost at Archangel ended up being Kumori, and it was just like
Yes.
I had this like series of like Shyamalan ending fics. My
I
favorite
really do like that conspiracy, especially because Kyle is Petrovich.
Right.
I really enjoy that fan theory. Yes.
That's fact.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just
Well, it's got to be at this point.
Can you share if it's
She
credible
she's-
or not?
She cannot
Do you
confirm or deny.
actually I was wondering, do you just get the books earlier what you beta read, or do you know more of Jim's plan beyond that, or do you
I
just
know a lot of what Jim's planned beyond that. Yeah.
How can you stand it? How I could not do the beta read and then like not share. God.
It's really hard.
Well, and
That's actually probably the most difficult part is like remembering like what parts of like what comes in the future. Like Jim has shared with the entire fandom, like in Q&As versus like what he's shared with me privately. So I've actually like stepped back in a pretty major way in like terms of speculation with fellow fans, because I'm terrified of accidentally letting something slip that is not my place to let slip.
are you
If you ever need someone to confide in, I'm always here for you. Just reach out. I'll be.
will be
Not
your
entirely
betas.
true. He's here one of every 3 episodes to confide in, so you can.
has Jim shared this with the other betas, or is it since you're so close to Jim, it's specifically you? So you can
Specifically
only
me.
talk to Jim about it, or you can't even talk to the other betas about it.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Oh,
Well,
just
at
have to
least you
adopt-
get to go, I know something you don't.
Yeah, you adopt that mentality.
Right.
That's why, like,
It's not
I
even
would
something that I can really brag about. It's just like, oh, I'm suffering under this person.
have to find solace if I was ever a beta reader on something into being like holding it over these guys type thing. Because otherwise, in general, I'd be like, God damn it.
So the questions you got to ask yourself is like, is she about to get released because we're so late in the series, or has he written the series much like he's written a Dresden Files book, and we won't know everything until the final 2 books anyway? That's the question you ask yourself. So that's why I keep saying everything's got to come out in peace talks, right? Like, we're gonna get all this; it's gonna tie things together. Of course, there's gonna be new questions, but
yeah, but we will get the answer of who fixed Little Chicago.
No.
Someday.
No.
Oh, so
Even
you're
I
saying
don't think
that one doesn't
even that
happen in
one
Peace
doesn't.
Talks?
No, I
That
don't
does not
include that
happen
in
in Peace
everything.
Talks.
Yeah.
Just
See?
imagine.
I don't think Jim is going to
battleground.
fire me for saying that. No, that doesn't happen in Peace Talks.
In 30
Unbelievable.
Jim
years,
can't
it will be
fire
a
me at this point.
microfiction.
There's something that
Yeah,
doesn't
you have job
happen in
security.
Peace Talks? Are you sure?
Yeah, it happens in Battleground. That's what.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
Right.
It's Peace Talks Apple.
Oh,
Yes.
hashtag
Wow.
TBHS, by the way.
I mean, it is.
That's
Imagine
fantastic.
We're done with the big apocalyptic Dresden Files. The main series is done. We still don't know who fixed Little Chicago.
Yeah, it's
Jim
going to
just
be a
kind of
micro
forgot
fiction.
about it.
It's going to be a micro fiction at the end. By the way,
Yeah, it's a-
By the way, Dumbledore has
That's
been
what I
gay
said.
all this time.
Yeah. Oh, geez. Yes.
unbelievable.
Jim, don't do it to me.
No.
I can't. My childhood books were kind of ruined with all this post fixing. Just don't
Oh,
ruin
this
my adult.
This is
books.
why he does all the cons
Yeah.
and stuff, because he's smarter. You parse out the details now, all the side stuff that's never going to be in it. That way you don't look like you're just reverse engineering your wokeness later.
You guys get to read the microfiction before it gets up, or like you guys as beta, but versus you, who's the person who does the.
Yeah, he posted
Website.
this to the beta list.
So how
Singular.
did the betas receive the microfiction? Because they've been kind of controversial for us.
Generally with a lot of like table flipping gifs. I don't know.
So about the same then.
Yeah, pretty much the same.
Yeah, it seems like it. Whatever microfiction was there, something was kind of split down the middle about it, and we were arguing.
It's
Except
really
for,
the Mike
except for Mike.
Yeah.
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 Yes,
fine.
yes.
No,
Mike is
that one
very
pissed everyone off
straightforward.
the most. It was
Yeah.
Yeah,
didn't-
and I
I
don't remember there
didn't
being
play the
any.
Morgan one.
Yeah, I actually they've now been posted like so long ago that I generally don't remember what the beta response was to journal, but I definitely don't think that any of the others had controversy in any way.
I mean, yeah, I think journal would be the tippy top of that one for us.
Mhm.
So yeah.
It's just so. It's just yeah. It's. Oh, I don't know. I mean, I kind of liked it. I mean, I don't know.
Really, all
Don't
that?
really
Are
tell
you
us how you
sure?
really feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on, director. I mean,
I'm trying to figure out if my questions are okay to ask.
Okay, fair enough.
She
Like,
she can always say, "I'm not at liberty to discuss."
she's very tactfully drank from her cup a couple of times. So yeah, she doesn't have that "I'm not going to tell you" charm that you know.
Yeah.
But he works with what they got.
Right.
It was actually great. At Phoenix Comic Con, there was a group of Dresden fans that invited me to be on their like Dresden Files theory panel, and so I knew because I do not have a poker face, and I knew that just like in hearing a certain questions, like there were, or hearing like my fellow panelists like response to certain questions, like I knew that like I couldn't have it recorded because like I didn't want like any little micro expressions to be micro analyzed, but I actually brought this like printout of Jim's face with this like disapproving eyebrow, like that I like printed out and put on a stick that I put in front of my face whenever I was afraid. Excuse me, when I was afraid I was going to give anything away by my reaction.
That's awesome.
Which
Yeah,
in and
but-
of itself gives something away.
Yeah. Okay, so we go back and check that out now. Whenever she lifts up the mask,
Yeah.
it might
Well,
be.
it wasn't filmed.
Tidbit.
Like
Yeah.
I specifically made sure that it wasn't filmed. So.
Right. We'll have to watch out for that trickery. So get some of those bootleg copies going. No.
Whenever Jim says that, I'm not going to tell you, or I can't tell you, or anything like that. It's
Right.
like, okay, so it was yes.
Not
That's what I'm going to work
necessarily.
on.
No,
Yeah.
no, definitely not
Yeah.
necessarily.
It's an area of focus, I think. You know, that's the way that I take it, because you know, certainly in some of the Q&As he did in Salt Lake City, or you know, just when we did the interview, like with him, I do try to like orchestrate a question that it's like, I want the answer to give me something new. I know he's too clever that he's not going to give something away that he doesn't want to, because I've seen him at too many of the conventions to really pull one out there. But I want to ask it in such an open-ended, kind of funneled way that he gives something new. With you, I'm too worried about what we would get out of it. Like, no offense, but like, because it's so close and you guys have had this under the lid at least for the last 6 months. Like, you don't want to even, as you said, get the micro expressions or anything. So,
yeah, and also just like Jim has been asked so many of the it's very rare that he gets asked a question that he hasn't been asked before, and so like he's thought a lot about like how he's going to answer certain things in like the most she way possible. And I remember like way back at when he attended FOCON the next year, he and like White Knight had just come out. He was asked who will get Fiddleacious. And Jim's response was that no one has guessed yet who is going to get it, and which we find out in small favor that like basically like Harry trades like Fiddleacious to Nicodemus as a way of like big thing, and so I mean he eventually gets it back, but like his answer of like no one has guessed it yet is that perfect way of like oh like yeah, no one has guessed it yet because in the next book he gives it to Nicodemus. So. He is a sneaky man.
Right.
He has been kind of open. Sorry, with the book titles. Like he's told us the titles for the Big Apocalyptic Trilogy.
Yes.
For the wrestling book, which is now book 19, Heel Turn, right?
Heel Turn.
That's not what it's going to be called, and it makes me so sad because I like that so much more than the actual name of the book.
So petition him. That's a petition I'll get behind.
Not to mention you've got like 6 months to a year before it's like, actually official, right? Since we're already getting...
because he has to write Mirror Mirror first.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Well, that's true.
Yes.
Yeah.
All this time.
All right. So you hear that, fans? With every Q&A, every interview, every write letters.
We'll make him think it as Heel Turn.
Yeah.
I've done my best to appeal to him and haven't had any success yet, but any of the fans that want to sort of add their weight to that, I highly encourage.
I offered him $20 when he came to New York.
Right.
I
don't want him to be able to do his laundry, go to the grocery store, read anything online without seeing Team Heel Turn. Every tweet, reply with the hashtag. I want him to dream it. So.
I think part of the concern is that like that phrase is like a little too inside baseball. Like that there's like
baseball.
Metaphor
wrestling.
inside baseball. Like it's a little bit too like not enough people would understand the definition of that term. Like, and,
whereas Skin Game was totally
yeah, like
that's entirely valid.
Or Full Moon, or
no,
hold on, let me start.
Good.
Full Moon is fine.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying I have a problem with any of them, but out of all the titles
did not seem right.
Out of all the titles that are in the common lexicon, Grave Peril is pretty good.
White Knight was fantastic.
Yeah,
as a title, that's an amazing title.
Great.
But Heel Turn, because I don't need to know anything about the plot, and I know it fits.
And the only reason that I know that term is because I have in my life spent a lot of time on what's it called? TV tropes. And like they use that there, but otherwise like I would have had no idea what that word means. And the title that he's chosen
my old WWF.
Until We Change His Mind is a lot more widely known. So
only time knowing WWF came in handy.
As it so happens, the readers of the Dresden Files are huge nerds, so
Yeah.
Oh yes.
At least I imagine the people watching this or listening to this podcast, like, I'm sorry, kids, if you've been unsure about your nerd closetedness, you are a nerd. So.
I kind of think like when it comes to
it gets better.
When it comes to titles of the Dresden Files, how many? Because I hadn't really gotten into the fandom back then when it came out. How many knew just from the title that changes were like? It was one word. It's changes. Like, who saw that coming before they read the book? How much was gonna kind of happen in that book? How big it was gonna be?
I mean, like that was a very sort of frequent reaction from the fans, or like why did it break the naming convention? Like why is this just a one-word title? And because Jim has sort of spoken openly about the naming convention, so a lot of fans like know to expect it at this point. So yeah, like people knew that like something was going to be very different in this book.
I'm in danger. Just the little Ralph Wiggins.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I don't think this is giving too much away because he alluded to this in the Daniel Green interview, but Battleground was almost a one-name book.
Hmm.
Ooh.
Can you share what that one name was?
No.
Battleground is one
Hold
word.
on. Right. Yeah.
Just no
We'll
space.
err on the side of caution.
Let's see. So if we've got changes, yeah. The next 15 minutes of the show will be speculation about what word. No.
What was that
Well,
word?
like the reason
Yeah.
that he ended up not going with that is that I heard a lot of people that were like helping name the book. Like we convinced him like that it just doesn't suit the book. Like that's not what the book is about. And so he ended up changing it for those reasons. So even if I were to share it with you, it wouldn't give you insight into like more like what the book is about, except by like process of elimination.
Do me a favor and get that Jim disapproving face out, right? So this is complete BS.
I'm here in Dallas.
This is completely BS.
Hold
I'm
up the
throwing
mug.
this out
Hold up the
there.
mug to your
Yep,
face.
seriously, I'm telling you, the one word was going to be Valhalla because Murphy is going to come back as a Valkyrie in Battleground. So that's what's going to happen. So
No, it happens in Peace Talks.
Shit,
no,
you're
no.
right.
I mean,
talks Apple.
yeah, there's the mug. So yes, so she
No, I'm
dies in
genuinely
Peace Talks,
thirsty.
and then we find out that the second nation that Dresden kills because they messed with somebody that he loves, that happens in Battleground. So.
Okay, I can't help it. Would you feel comfortable confirming whether certain characters appear in Peace Talks or not?
No. I don't think Jim would be happy with me doing that.
Everyone appears there. It's whether or not they
Everybody's
appear
there.
after.
Here, I got a short list for you. Marcone, Dresden.
He's in the trailer.
Ab-
Anyone in the trailer?
I know.
obviously
That's what I'm
is someone who-
using. Faravax. He was
Yes.
also in the trailer. Yes.
Oh my God, Pharaoh-X, yes.
The problem is who doesn't appear after Christmas Eve. That's the real issue.
Yeah. Right.
No. I need at first. I need to know if certain people appear in Peace Talks, and then whether they can appear in Christmas Eve.
I'll tell you who's not in Peace Talks. Harvey from Skin Game. He's not going to make it. So.
Correct. Well, he is
Kim
dead.
Delaney.
Yeah. Right.
Just
My
We're
boy
gonna
Harvey,
go down
man.
the list.
Yeah. Morgan.
Victor
the-
Sal.
Going out.
One of these
There are
guys is gonna be
ghosts
in there.
possible. Corpse Taker showed up. How many
Mhm.
books after? Yeah. Come
Yeah,
on.
but Corpse Taker had
Yes.
like a legitimate reason to be there, being necromancy.
Yes.
We don't know who Callum Camori is.
So necromanced Kim Delaney,
Yeah.
you're hearing it now, will appear in
There.
this book.
Listen,
Oh,
if somebody
wow.
wants to go through the effort of bringing her, go nuts.
So Kim Delaney is Komori confirmed? So,
Yes. Confirmed.
That was actually
Yes.
a body double. She was a lot more potent than you thought.
Right.
It'll break. It'll break.
Yeah, she-
Dave's heart.
The whole
Kim-
needing help.
Kim Delaney is actually Cowl. So
Oh wow,
Mm.
Oh.
that is a twist. Yeah. So the whole needing help with the napkin circles, that was an affectation of her secret identity.
well, it was an alternate universe Kim Delaney. So
Oh.
the other
Mirror is going to be lit, man. I'm super pumped. So I think it's funny too that we talk about that, because I think like there was at least some outcry from our one loyal Discordian, but yeah, right. But he was like, wait, what about Mirror? And I was like, calm down. He's talked about it for like 3+ years. I don't think it's just out the window. I think we're magically getting a new in-between book, which it sounds like is what's happening, and everything. So,
Yes.
but the last week there was some roller coaster and some stuff, and I'm like, that doesn't preclude him inserting something or flipping it, because I brought up what had happened with Deadbeat and Proven Guilty, right? That's a story he talks about all the time. So
Right.
yes.
I mean, you
I
got.
mean, it's not even to that extent. I mean, basically, just like Peace Talks and Battleground, like started out as one just like gargantuan like monstrosity of a book,
Right.
and actually, like before we'd even finished the book, like I was starting to work on the trailer because like at that time we had no idea like when Penguin was wanting to release the book. and there was some strong suspicion that they were gonna try to have it out for Christmas. And so I was like, okay, like, well, we need to, like, even though you haven't finished the book yet, like, we need to film this trailer so that like it can go through post and all that stuff. And I was trying to like write this script, and for this book that was serving both of these plot lines. And I realized like Jim, like, you've really written 2 books here, and like long before his editor gave him the same feedback. And so yeah, like he was able to so like with the book split, he wrote like a significant amount, like not just like to the end to make the Peace Talks have a more satisfying conclusion and Battleground have a more satisfying opening, that would like allow them to stand alone, but also like he was able to like go back in and really tease out like more character moments, sort of scattered throughout the book. And so it's just like altogether just a much more satisfying story, and just like just so much more enjoyable to read. And so yeah, like it's not a matter of like things getting like jumbled around in order. It's just like this has now been split, and so like what was now 17 is now 18.
Right. Well, instead of having War and Peace, the Dresden Files, we now have Peace and War, the Dresden Files. So,
and Jim was so upset that he'd already used the word war, the title War Cry, because like it's so like War and Peace, and then Talks and Cry, just like why?
Right.
That would have
So
been
what was your side of the story there when he finally did get back? You know what? I am going to make 2 books after all. The editor said the same thing as you. Like, what's your perspective on that story? If there's anything you can share.
My reaction was thank goodness, because it was like ridiculously massive and unwieldy. And
was like Stormlight big?
Be 2 books. Sorry, what was that?
Was it like Stormlight big?
I don't think so. I think that's Jim mentioned in that podcast that he was in like the 400,000 word realm. It was not. He misremembered there. I think it was like originally like 225,000, but that's so like I like outside of the territory of what like I think the Ace imprint publishes, that like they weren't going to be able to use like their own like infrastructure to publish it. And it was going to just add like ridiculous costs like on their own overhead, and so they were going to have to like just charge a much higher price point, just because they were going to have to go like outside of their like in-house capabilities. So like comparing it to like well, Brandon Sanderson doesn't charge $50 for it. Like it's apples and oranges.
He's got different infrastructure like you, but. What was the work time on Cold Days? Do you remember that on the top of your head? Just because that's the longest book so far, right?
I don't remember. It's somewhere in the high 100,000s.
Do you know the word counts of Peace Talks and Battlegrounds?
I haven't gone back to check. And actually, like he just finished doing like additional layers of revisions of Battleground, and I haven't seen those yet. So I don't even know where that ended up shaking out.
So like the production budget is somewhere between 1 and 1 billion words.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Yes. And the book price, we missed it out. You know, the book price was going to be between, $10 and $1 billion as well. But now we're much closer to $10 than $1 billion. So $9.99. You guys are such nerds. You guys are all like, what's the word count? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking here that Jim wrote a book so big that he broke the printing press. So he had to be like, no, this book is too powerful. It must be 2 books. So,
yeah, I mean, that is a certain status. That's what they did to Tolkien.
Yeah.
How many movies? No.
The reason I asked was because that's like the longest book I've read so far is a Stormlight book. I was just wondering if Peace Talk was like in that scope before.
That's going to be the BAT, each one of those.
Those are the door stoppers.
Right. So maybe he should tell his publisher now, just so you know, the BAT
and a little
big.
Right.
Yeah, it's now going to be the big apocalyptic heptalogy. So
it'll be like the Odyssey and the Iliad, except.
So there's the book stars, there's book stones, there's book hells, there's book bells. Right. Yeah. Perfect.
Yes.
Yeah, that works. All right. One question about Cinder Spires, since he's still working on that, apparently plugging away with decent rate. Who's your favorite character in there?
Folly.
Folly.
She's
Yes.
just so much fun. I tend to have a weakness towards like characters that are just like not quite all right, which is another reason why I love Molly and Ghost Train. Oh, I'm a bad person. But yeah, Folly is just so much fun.
Have you gotten beta chapters for Cinder Spires yet? The next book?
Yes.
Do we get to see more of? I forget his name now.
What are you doing?
The
No.
captain's
Can't
best
just
friend.
ask.
I love that character, and there's just not enough of him.
The captain's best friend, which it's been apparently too long since I've read it. So
Bayard.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I love him.
Yeah.
I love him.
I will not confirm or deny any detail of what happens in.
Are there airships in the next book? No, I'm just kidding. So yeah, like hell, I
Are there
barely
cats?
I barely heard the rumor
There will be
that it was
more
coming,
cats.
let alone it's all confirmed now. So that's
Will there
awesome.
be a dog that is maybe a brown
I don't
kibble?
even know what the story is with dogs in the Cinder
They were
Spire.
not brought up in the first
Right.
book, actually. Maybe there's no dogs.
The cats eat them.
dogs are
That'd be a
hunting.
sad
The
universe
dogs are
with
hunting
no
the
dogs.
ford.
I wouldn't want to live in that
The
universe.
dogs are on the ground, on the surface, hunting the ford.
I don't know if I'd want to live in that universe with the giant spiders that can just eat your face off or something.
That's what happened to the dogs.
It's okay living in that world as long as there are
It's a
dogs.
look.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to be a huge 365 days. It's not going to happen in the same calendar year per se, but like having 2 books in the same year and then hopefully very quickly the third. So he's definitely trying to level out his average, I can tell. So
There's got to be some pride in that, right? Okay, so I did like 1 book a year. Now it's been like a bit of delay. So okay, we're bringing out 2 and this next one.
right.
I mean, with the short stories and everything, and now 2 books, it's not even that
Shocked
much
if he
behind.
finished it by the summer. Like, I don't think that's gonna happen.
Well, I mean, yeah, we could go with the peace talks, mileposts as well, right? Because there was some frustration there, and it's like it's the Mr. Incredibles meme. We'll get there when we get there. And honestly, I'm gonna have 2 books to keep me like if he's turned them into the publisher practically, like I'll have plenty of time to keep me busy.
We will have plenty of content.
Right. EG will almost actually be done with peace talks by the time that Battlegrounds comes around with his 1 month, moratorium. So yeah.
That month is gonna hurt.
Yeah.
Well, also, I mean, like now that he doesn't have like all of those conventions to go to like upset his work schedule, like he might get done a lot faster than I would even give him credit. So yeah.
That's fair. Yeah.
See, nature abhors extroverts.
With
We're
all this
loved
time at home, I might even get to read Codex Alera, but I wouldn't hold my breath. Okay, I tried the second book 3 times. It's just I don't know.
They're
not
great.
sure.
They're
I love
fantastic.
the Cinder Spire.
The second book was my
man.
favorite.
It's so
Eh.
good.
Oh,
Yeah, but you like ghost stories, so
My favorite.
I listened to it on
I just
audiobook.
like
I
the
blame
old-
Kate Redding.
Like 7 books in the Dresden Files.
I don't know what you're saying, Ben. You're
Yeah.
lagging. I just have no idea.
Oh,
Wi-Fi swapping.
Isana.
Get on it.
Isana. Oh,
That English.
Isana. I like.
I'm not sure.
if he says it one more time, he's going to summon a great old one. So we should probably wrap this up. So,
Pick him out.
Yeah.
Is there
Yeah.
anything you'd like to plug of any upcoming things that we should pay attention to because we have the information yet?
Tuesday, there's going to be a Dresden drop, right?
Yeah,
So-
like I'm sure that all of your listeners are already aware, but like every Tuesday in 2020, we're celebrating the 20th anniversary of Stormfront, which actually is this week, by doing these like original like microfictions, original art, like all of this like fabulous new material that folks haven't seen yet, and just generally having a great time and sort of giving back to the fandom that has kept us aloft for all this time. So yeah, last week was the trailer. So I'm so glad to sort of finally have that out into the open. So I no longer have to like sit on the news that there's a second book, which was so hard, a secret to keep.
You try being a moderator when it gets leaked the day before, and
Yeah, right.
like, we kind of wanted to keep the surprise. We were like,
yeah.
and it was like there was a lot of posts.
Yep, there was.
Yeah, and also I want to just like say thank you to all the moderators that were so cool about like when I reached out to them and said like, can you please take like hide these posts so that it can be a surprise in the trailer itself. Like, thank you guys for being so cool about it, because like it is legitimate news, and so like that there was no legitimate reason to squash it except for just my own heart. And so thank you guys for taking care of me that way. I appreciate it.
A bureaucracy curse. Because they don't understand Tuesday, they want Monday, and yes,
right,
yeah,
everybody.
Well, like originally, we were gonna do it at Emerald City Comic Con, and so like he was gonna announce this thing in like at that Thursday night fan event, and then the trailer was gonna go up for everyone on Tuesday. So like the news would have time to sort of percolate through the fandom. But then we would have this like widely publicized, widely circulated thing on the internet on Tuesday. So it would give the publishers enough time to like let distributors know that this was going to happen, and like so that we would have like the strongest pre-orders possible while still allowing Jim to be the person to break the surprise. And then when we're no longer able to like have that slight sort of staggering of time, Penguin released the information like Wednesday afternoon to the publishers, thinking that it would just take them until Tuesday morning to get all their pre-orders ready. But like no, like they were all super on top of it.
Right.
And then
you
Penguin
baked on the bureaucracy.
posted on their own website that so that because if it had just been like Kobo, South Africa reporting on this, then like fans could adequately rationalize that it's just like one website just like being crazy. But yeah, like when Penguin's website is officially confirming this, like it's hard to say like, nope, that's just Amazon being Amazon and assigning like random stuff. Like no.
It's not as hard as you think. People right here, we're not having it.
And when will
fiction like emails everyone that's on their mailing list this is happening? Like no.
Right.
Surprise.
When will it be available for pre-order, Battleground?
It's available for pre-order now.
As audiobook.
I'm not sure. I mean, and it was the same way with Peace Talks. It took them like a month or so to sort of get up to speed. It doesn't mean anything. I know that Marsters is super excited to be the one to record it, and like everyone involved in the production is just like so completely tied to Marsters as the narrator. We're definitely not gonna like. No one wants to see the Ghost Story fast happen. So yeah.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
And Battleground is someone else. There would be riots.
Yeah.
Yes.
There has only ever been Marsters, so it's all good.
No, you just got to get somebody else from Buffy to do like David Boreanaz. He'll do Battleground.
Well, originally, like when they were looking for an actor, just like at zero notice to record Ghost Story, they were like looking for other actors that like in sci-fi fantasy. And originally they were going to get Luke Perry because he was in the Buffy movie, and we were like, no, let's not.
Wrong Buffy.
Yeah. How far down the Kevin Bacon number were we going here? That like,
well, Kevin Bacon's always.
It's got Buffy in the name, right? That's
William Shatner reads Ghost Story by Jim
Honestly,
Butcher.
I probably would have enjoyed it more.
Wow.
I don't think he was that. I don't think.
I thought
I don't want to be fair to him.
He didn't know the characters to the extent that Marsters did, because like if you go back to like Marsters reading Stormfront, then I mean like he's still sort of getting to know these people, and he doesn't like his performance is spectacular, but it doesn't have like the depth of history and awareness that the most recent audiobooks have. It took him like a couple books under his belt to really get the level of nuance that we enjoy now. And so people are just comparing like the 12th book that Marsters did to the first book that Glover did, and it's an unfair comparison.
Yeah.
Right. Glover did
That's a really good point.
Well, someone rationalized that because he was dead, he didn't have the same voice, so it was okay.
Yeah, that was an easy rationalization.
Right.
That's how I did it.
Is there an Easter egg in the trailer that people haven't given you enough time to talk about that you really want to talk about?
I was so excited that one person noticed that in Harry's shield at the very end, I have some of the Fury crafting symbols from the UK Alara covers. I think that was my favorite Easter egg to put in.
Wow.
the text that goes around the shield is the typeface, like the sort of like faux ancient typeface from the Indiana Jones ride at Disney. And it says something along the lines of like, if you can read this, like, please go outside.
No,
Nice.
don't go outside.
Oh my
Don't go
goodness.
outside.
It was a different time. Like, if you read this, you're a huge freaking nerd. Like, go outside, catch some Pokemon. Like, yeah, your family misses you.
I need to be a wizard. I should do shit like that all the time. That's fantastic.
Definitely someone that was like waiting their whole life to go to Disney that speaks that language, and they're like, oh,
Right. I've got bad news for you. I think you are that person. So like, there's at least one. Oh, it might be you.
Let's see. I really enjoyed that. I mean, so the day that we were filming at Lobo Castle, and we're just gonna do like whole can of worms here. Like the makeup artist like already had like this a huge list of characters that like for that the sort of like Last Supper shot that she needed to service, and she had an assistant that was going to be helping her out, but that assistant I think had car trouble or whatever, and had to cancel at the last moment, and so she had to like reach through her Rolodex, find someone else, and so like all in all, it cost her like an hour of prep time, and so like we were like looking for things where we could sort of like cut corners, and so one of the things that she like wasn't able to include was just like the scar on Marcone's ear from like when he was kidnapped by the Narians and it was nipped off in small favor. And so like I actually like went into the footage and like CG'd on a scar onto Marcone's ear, and it made me very happy. Like it's so subtle that like literally no one would notice it if I hadn't pointed it out, but it just gives me so much joy that like that I could be that pedantic, because like there were some things that I needed to change, like just because like either like we didn't have the money to do it the way that it was written, or like some degree of artistic license needed to be involved. Like with Lara, she was written as wearing, I don't remember if it was a black or like a very, very dark blue dress, but because so many of the iconic Lara Wraith costumes have been white, I thought it was very important for just like the instant character recognition factor for her to be in white. So yeah, there are definitely a bunch of things that I changed for whatever very good reasons. And so the idea of like, so I knew that there were some things that I couldn't be pedantic about. And so when I had opportunities to be really pedantic, I just jumped on those. So that was a lot of fun.
this is why you're doing the TV show.
Yes.
All right. Do we have any other pressing questions?
Yes, but we're not allowed, so it doesn't matter.
so many questions.
Yeah.
The one main thing I was going to say while I've got everybody's attention is a warning that next week is also April 1st, right? So just saying, don't buy any plane tickets to New York based off of any news that you might see on Jim Butcher's website. So
Ask for confirmation April 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
Right,
Yes.
right. Yeah. And March 31st at 11:59 is also out, just saying.
Yes.
So, but
well, I'd actually like taken to posting things like a few hours before it rolled over to April 1st in the United States, so that like European fans could enjoy, and like everyone sort of on that hemisphere before they got totally inundated by all the other April Fool's Day jokes. So I mean, yeah, like I've just like I will have the Dresden drop like early in the morning on the 31st, and then just like don't believe anything that happens later that day.
All right, noted. So, and then April 1st is the official 20th, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
that's awesome.
Oh, that's gonna work out well.
Yeah, I know, right? Huge news on the 20th anniversary. Actual Titans attack Chicago.
No, I was gonna say audiobook announced. It's just a copy of Remember the Titans.
Nice.
Actually, I love that like one of my previous April Fool's Day jokes was that like Jim, because fans had been sort of upset about like delays in the books, that Jim was going to take like a few years off to like write all the rest of the books in the series, and then they would be released in short order. And like at the time, I had no idea like what was going to happen with Peace Talks and Battleground. That was still like years away. Right. And so the fact that was accidentally prescient to any degree like made me laugh a lot.
No, on the 20th anniversary, Hollywood superstar Joe Pesci announced to narrate the audiobook for Peace Talks, or Gilbert Gottfried, or something.
Yeah, I might actually get a copy, quite honestly.
Right.
Just for the interesting factor.
I want a trailer with Mouse in it, so you can have fun picking out the
I
dog.
can't afford Mouse.
Oh.
There's so many things involved in like filming with a dog. Like
Get
when you
Jim's
do
dog
things
and put a lion's mane on it.
Right. Yeah. Oh, geez.
Brew is like so gentle and derpy and adorable, and just like,
yeah.
If we need Mouse to like sort of like do the dap the little with the nose, or like shake hands, or like or follow a laser pointer. I don't know.
Might be my favorite short story, the one with Mouse, actually.
So good.
Okay.
So good.
Sounded like someone gave him the idea of Mouse and Spot Kerberos going around together. That would be fun.
Oh, that was one of my contributions. Like I pointed him to the Tumblr post about Kerberos meaning spotted, and he wrote that into the book. So like, yes.
Nice.
Awesome. We thank you for your contribution to the fandom. So mine's nice. All these other things you talked about, blah, blah, blah. But that one, that's, yeah.
You named the dog Spot.
Right.
I pointed him to the C.S. Lewis quote about like, you don't have a soul, you are a soul, you have a body. Which I found out later was not actually a C.S. Lewis quote. It was just a quote attributed to C.S. Lewis. But oh, wow.
And that quote's name, Albert Einstein.
Right. Abraham Lincoln. He posts on the internet all the time. So
Michael Scott.
Cool.
Should we wrap it up? Let her get back to her life. So,
like,
I mean, we'll keep you forever if you allow us. So maybe you should.
I'm trying to stay quiet.
Give me a potty break and I'll be good to go.
On. So.
Well, that has been a production of the Justin Files podcast. Thank you for watching this. We have plenty of other podcasts. To check out Daniel Green's interview,
so you plug his?
Click.
Come on.
Hang on.
That one's active.
He's got a thing.
Click one.
He's worth plugging. He's
I got a
entertaining.
I can let me do the bit. So all you got to check out Daniel Green's podcast and interview of Jim Butcher. Just click one of the links in the description, and then wherever you go to, any of the links in the description, just search in your URL bar Jim Butcher interview YouTube, and then you search that, and one of the results will be. But we also got plenty of other podcasts for you to check out with the Broken Jars.
Professionals.
Yes.
One thing to anybody who's still listening is that there have been a few people asking to be guests, and I'm going to try to get those up and running again. It's been weird with the read through. If you haven't already, send an email, because I can't remember all the people who's asked, but I can search an email for the word guest. So, yes.
Excellent.
All right. See you guys next time.
Also, if you haven't seen it yet, there's a Q&A that Jim and I did the other day. And I guess when this goes live on Tuesday, like it'll be like linked on Jim's website. But I think that we have also linked to it on the Jim Butcher News Twitter. So yeah.
It's also on your YouTube, right? Like same YouTube as the trailer.
So like if you just you've clicked on the trailer, just like click on my name and it's there. So
now we've got to go so that in 2 hours she can post the next bit of news, so that we can wait 2 more weeks to get it on the podcast. So.
Emergency podcast session.
Right. Thank you so much for coming. So we hope to have you on again in the future. So
I'd enjoy that.
Oh, check out High Fantasy on High.
Oh, now you're doing it.
Now you're doing it.
just cut it out.